football scientist, ESPN.com's NFL insider Casey Joyner, as we take a deeper look at the big game on Sunday between the Panthers and the Broncos. Welcome, Casey.
Hey, great to be here.
Good to have you as always. Now, some of the things I want to look at in this game, you look at, number one, you got two really, really good defenses here. I don't know, would you surmise that either one of these defenses, would you call them an elite defense when you watch these teams on film?
Yeah, I'd call the Broncos an elite defense because, you got to be able to stop the run. You got to be able to get after the quarterback. As Al Davis said, with, four people, you don't want to have to blitz if you don't have to, and you got to be able to cover the pass. And if you look at all the metrics, obviously looking at last Sunday, Denver can get after the passer. They can stop the pass because they have probably the best set of cornerbacks in the NFL. And then, can they stop the run? Yeah, they do a fantastic job at a metric I have called good blocking yards per attempt. They're getting it, or they only allow 6.9 yards per attempt on plays where the other team gets good blocking. It's one of the best totals in the league. So Carolina's almost as good, but Denver's got the better defense.
All right, so you got an elite defense on the Broncos side of things. How do they match up with what Carolina does, Casey? Because what I think is interesting is what they did to Brady was brilliant. But can they do what they did to Brady to Newton, or are they going to have to come up with a new game plan for Carolina?
Well, first off, they're going to go. I would think they'd go press man coverage again. That's one of the things they did against New England that worked. And Carolina doesn't have a great set of wide receivers. I don't look at their wide receivers and say, "Oh, these are the types of guys who could beat press man coverage." And there's not an Antonio Brown on that squad, so I think they're going to do a lot of the same of that. I don't know if they're going to be able to get after the passer quite as well because Carolina's pass blocking has been up and down this year. Denver's pass blocking, New England's pass blocking has just been bad pretty much all year. So I don't know if they'd be able to get at the passer quite as well. But it's one thing about Wade Phillips, and it's a big risk because Cam Newton's done very well against the blitz this year. And Wade Phillips is going to get a pass rush no matter what he has to. If he's got to bring six people, he'll do it. So it's going to be interesting to see because if they can get the pass rush for four, they could do it today against Brady. If they got to start to bring more to get that pass rush, things might change.
What makes Carolina, by the way, number one offense in the league, what makes them, with not a lot of stars, Casey? It's Cam Newton and the Merry Men out there. They do have Olsen, decent run game, but I don't think the names start rolling off your tongue when you start talking about weapons on this team. Why Carolina's offense the best in the NFL?
Carolina fans wouldn't like hearing this, but 6 of the last 8 games they played in the regular season were against teams that finished 22nd or worse in the league in yards per attempt allowed. In other words, basically you could say most of their opponents in the second half of the season when Cam Newton started posting some fantastic numbers and he went from being, he's having a good season to, he's the MVP. 6 of those 8 opponents were in the bottom third of the league in pass defense. You play teams like that, you're going to do pretty good. And frankly, this is probably the toughest matchup that Cam Newton's had all season. So I'm not going to be surprised if he regresses back to the first half of the season, Cam Newton.
You wrote an article about that over at ESPN.com in the Insider section. And what would be some of the things that Denver can do that would make you worry if you're a Cam Newton fan?
Some of the things they could do is if they can get a pass rush, because this is a big thing. Usually, the first thing Wade Phillips is going to do, he's going to get a pass rush, and then he's going to worry about trying to make you make turnovers and things. And so I think against New England, they were able to get a pass rush with just their front four. So now he said, okay, hey, I don't have to do a bunch of things to get a pass rush. We're already getting that. Now I can concentrate on just doing a lot of coverages, a lot of things in coverage to mix up things and try and confuse Tom Brady, which they did. I've got a metric called bad decision, which is how often you make a quarterback makes a mental error that leads to a turnover opportunity for the other team. Brady makes 4 of them all season long. He made 2 in the first half of that game. So if Denver can get a pass rush against Newton, then they could do the same thing as the coverage did against Brady, and Newton will tend to force pass in the coverage at times. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him make some bad decisions.
Who's the weapon on Carolina that they need to go to? Who can the Panthers rely on to counter an elite Denver defense?
I would be surprised to see him go to possibly Funchess because Bradley Roby is the weak link among the Denver cornerbacks. The other guys are really strong, and he's a guy who's been hit and miss this year. And if Roby a lot of times might play the slot, so if he plays the slot, they would go to Funchess. If not, we'd be surprised to see either Ginn or Brown, whoever Denver puts Roby up against. If they move him in the slot, they can follow him there. But if he stays on the outside, they can go on the outside and go vertical against him because he's given up a lot of passes this year, more than the other guys have, definitely.
Want to flip the script now. Peyton Manning has obviously struggled this year. How do you think the Denver offense matches up with maybe not an elite defense, but they're pretty darn good, that Carolina side of the ball?
Now, first thing, he's not going to throw to Josh Norman. So whether Josh Norman covers Sanders or Thomas, whoever they put him up against, he's just not going to throw that way. I mean, he might throw a smoke pass or a hitch pass or something really safe in front of Norman if Norman is, say, given a good cushion. But otherwise, he's not going in that direction. He knows better. So, but the thing is Denver's got two great receivers. So Norman can take one of them out of the game plan, and then, okay, if he's gone, though, but the other guys, they're missing two of their other top three cornerbacks. So they've got fourth and fifth string cornerbacks in the rest of their defense. So if you're looking at Manning knows matchups as well as any quarterback in the league. So he's going to go, look, if you put Norman on Demaryius Thomas, fine, I'm going to throw 10, 12 passes to Emmanuel Sanders. There might be hitch passes, might be deeper passes. I'm going to go in places where you guys are not that good in coverage, and I think that's going to be a big advantage for Denver.
Pass rush, they get a lot of push from Short and Starr up the middle there. Can they get to Manning, who doesn't have the same arm that he used to have? Is this a situation where Carolina can, and I know you have your metric of bad decisions, can they force Manning into making bad decisions because of pressure?
Yeah, they're one of the best bad decision teams in the league. They force quarterbacks to making bad decisions 2.1% of the time last year. 1.3% is the league average. So that, and if you're above 2%, you're in an elite category. And mind you, Peyton Manning, he made more bad decisions this year, a high bad decision rate, I should say, than he had at any other time in his career. Thing is, though, is that changed later in the season when he realized, okay, my arm can't let me make some of these passes I used to make before, and there are coverages that I used to be able to beat that I can't beat. So I think he's going to do a lot of dinking and dunking. I think Denver's going to try and do like the old-time New York Giants tried to do under Parcells, and they beat the Bills in Super Bowl 25. Really try and play a clock ball game, slow the game down. And I think that their big thing is going to be Manning's not going to give you turnover opportunities. He's going to do everything dinking and dunking, and the only time he's going to go vertical is if he absolutely knows, okay, I've got a receiver that you guys are not going to be able to double cover.
Casey Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider, of course, here on the Sports Bash. And you look at where's an area of this game where you think one team has a clear advantage over the other? I mean, you both have very good defenses. I think Carolina's, they got the top offense in the league. But I think if you tell that to people, they don't really realize that.
I think, there's a big edge there. I think Carolina's biggest edge might be in special teams. McManus is Denver's punter. He might be the worst in the league. Carolina's kicker is just as good. ESPN Stats Information has a metric called Special Teams Expected Points Added. Basically measures scoreboard impact of special teams plays. Carolina is an above-average team there, and Denver's one of the worst teams in the league in that category. So it might only be a 3-point edge, it might only be a 3 or 4-point edge, something like that, but it's one of those things where if it's a really close game and Denver, it makes a mistake in the special teams area, that could be the place where Carolina gets an advantage.
All right, we'll break down this game further on Thursday when Casey joins us. We'll get his pick on the game as well and some of the other NFL things that are happening around the league. And while we got you, I want to ask you a couple quick things here. Zach Ertz signs with the Eagles. We touched on it a little bit last week. He gets a real big deal from then. Also, Lane Johnson, they re-signed him for big-time money. The next two guys, Bradford and Curry, those guys are going to get a lot of money on the free agent market. Do you think it would be a smart move for Philadelphia to bring Bradford back at what he probably will ask for, or move on from Bradford and start over?
You only replace a player if you think you got somebody better. You got to put up with him until you can find somebody who can do it as well or better. I think Sam Bradford, if you keep him healthy, he's a top 10 caliber quarterback. And unless you've got a top 10 caliber quarterback sitting on your bench, or that you can sign, you don't make that change. So I think let's hope Bradford doesn't hold him, doesn't put him up for barrel too much. But I think that they have to spend the money on Bradford, because if you don't have Bradford, I don't see how Peterson, the first thing he has to have is a great quarterback. And if you lose Bradford, I don't know that you've got one anymore.
Vinny Curry, you throwing big money at him if you're going to Jim Schwartz's 4-3?
I don't know, but big money. Again, Howie Roseman has shown over the years that he's not going to get into big bidding wars, and it's just he's got a price in his mind about what he'll pay for each particular position, and I think they'll say, okay, here's what we're going to offer you, and if Curry doesn't want it, go, I can draft another pass rusher.
We'll see what happens there. I know Curry wants to say he was actually at the Sixers game on Saturday night wearing a Flyers hat, and they introduced him as Eagles defensive end, Vinny Curry. He's not quite their property right now, but we'll see what happens in free agency. Casey Joyner will break down this game, give us his pick on Thursday's show, and don't forget, check him out on on ESPN.com in the Insider section, and of course follow him on Twitter at KCJoynerTFS. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it.